My son made it. Isn't that amazing?
I think we're live.
Did it say live?
Yeah, I think we're live. So,
all right, here we go.
Yeah.
So, Geoff, welcome and welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to our Tom podcast for the Octopus Movement. The Octopus Movement is a place that we want everybody to learn about, where we swim freely with nonlinear thoughts and positive thoughts and negative thoughts, and they all bash together and create a great big soup. But the thing is, it's a beautiful soup where everybody belongs, and we're solving the problems of the world one at a time and in our mycelium. So thank you. Welcome, Geoff.
Thank you, Lydia. Good to be here today. First of all, I just want to say you had me at soup, and could be a clam chowder, minestrone, whatever it is. Soup sounds wonderful today. So if anybody else wants a good soup, especially if you want a good, no, I'm not going to get into that. I was going to give you a good sancocho recipe, but that's a whole thing, and I might get canceled for it. But it's a good soup. So if you're interested in something this time of year, can't go wrong.
That's right. I freaking love soup. Soup is one of the best things. And if you've been any place and you pick up any of the culture of what to eat and how to do it, then you can make your own soup. But sometimes it's a little dangerous depending on what the culture is there, where the ingredients might come from. But hey, it's all good. So you have been in the Octopus Movement and you hopped on as a founder. This is something that I did too, but I want to know why you hopped on as a founder.
Because I cannot resist people with Dutch accents. It's as simple as that. I wish there were some deeper story behind it. I wish there was something profound. I would love to tell you some kind of a deep tale that says the idea of connecting with people around the world who believe in nonlinear thought and quantum solutions appealed to me. But frankly, I just had a conversation with Perry. I'm like, this guy's great. I want to hear more of his voice. And if I got to buy my way into doing that, then that's how it's going to be. So that was at least like 5% of the thought process. And the other 95 was actually, this is a really cool movement. I'm excited to be a part of it. We're going to change the world. Let's rock.
Yeah. And we are changing the world all together, and each one of us, and you are changing the world in a really unique way, and one that I love, because it's a reframing of everything that we come across and we do, not like keeping our hand in the hot fire, but saying, hey, what can this hot fire do to inspire me and to put me in a new direction? And that is through humor. So, and you have been writing things for others in the not quite so creative sphere for a while, and bringing them to their joy and their all the things to make them more effective, to help them be more effective. And now you've got a book, The Path to Perfectia, and that, tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is the part where people usually want to call the authorities and have me put in a straitjacket when I tell them how this book kind of came around, which is totally cool, by the way. I'm not theoretically opposed to that. The only thing I would say is, if you do get me put in that, make sure it's before the end of the summer. I don't wear white after Labor Day. So, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yes. So this came about here, The Path to Perfectia, based on essentially what I can only describe as a near life experience. So a lot of people talk about near death experiences, and there's this derealization that happens. And we're not going to go through all that. I think you could go on your YouTube rabbit holes for that. But essentially, it was the same phenomenon. Difference is, I just happened to be driving while it was happening. So do the math on how I got from point A to point B without ending up in a ditch in point C. Still couldn't tell you to this day. But the cool thing was, I found myself in communion with what you can only describe as, everyone has a different word for it. Some call it source consciousness. Some call it God. Some call it the universe. Some call it Detroit. Everyone's got their own name for it. That's cool. To me, the word was Perfectia. And that's just the download that I got from it. And ultimately, it was a fundamental message about what this construct is, why we're here, what this experience is all about. And then these names started coming to me. And then the names basically said, tell our story, and tell a story of 5 people who existed around turn of the century New York and turn of the most previous century, and how they experience this, and how they each interact with this construct, this dream, this illusion, and how they work through the most difficult parts of it by helping each other get to the other side of it.
Wow. Definitely kind of the opposite of the Hunger Games kind of concept, right? Although in a similar vein.
I don't know. I got pretty hungry writing the book. There's a lot of good food references in there. So I'm just telling you, keep a snack handy if you decide to get a copy.
Well, I'm thinking New York City, Hunger Games, hunger, snacks, food that can be delivered at 3 a.m. That was one of my favorite things that I loved when I lived there. But so what is the thing that happened in your car? What, like, okay, I get it. You got this inspiration and you got an epiphany, and you had voices in your head and they're all talking to you.
Yep.
But were you in that like bumper to bumper traffic when this happened, or were you like cruising? What was the situation?
The only voice in my head was Rodney Dangerfield, like, "Hey, you kidding me? Hit the road!" But there's my little buddy over here. But no, honestly, the voice in the head was on the open road. So I was in the Mississippi Delta, and I was actually crossing from Mississippi into Louisiana over the Mississippi Bridge, the Mississippi River rather. And that was an experience because, I'm certainly not going to make any bridge jokes today, but getting to the other side of that thing in one piece was an experience when I don't remember driving over it, because I truly felt that I was taken out of my body into a broader consciousness and just told essentially that this entire thing, it's a dream. It's a big collective dream. And we're here to just act out these characters within this dream and to experience essentially the universe shrinking itself all the way down to these tiny little characters called Lydia, called Geoff, and experiencing it against the backdrop of each other and against the backdrop of these stories, essentially one giant movie. So essentially this source, as I felt it, not in words, but just in this kind of deep feeling, this knowing, and I would call it more of a remembrance than knowing, if that makes sense. To some it will, to somebody like, seriously, straitjacket time, dude, get him out of here. But that's how it felt. And then as this was communicated to me, the first scene of the book really kind of elucidated that. So you have this character, and his name is Smooth, and he's this 22-year-old guy in New York City on December 6, 2000. And he's sitting at his favorite watering hole during the most wonderful time of the year. And the Christmas music's playing and the lights are going. And he's having the worst day of his life. It is the anniversary of the date that his mom had died 12 years prior when he was just a 10-year-old boy. And his girlfriend had just left him for a guy who was twice his size, 5 times as good looking, maybe 10 times, depending on how they cast the movie. And she walked into the bar with the new guy. So he's as low as it gets. And then he gets a visit from his spirit guide, who of course is named Angel because, creativity. And right in that first scene, you immediately see the contrast between what it's like to experience life as a human and what it's like to see this movie from the other side of the veil, where it's all a big game. It's all a big dream. It's all a big show. So Angel is having the time of his life watching Smooth in his misery. And he said, "This is great. Look at this. What a show you're putting on. This is hilarious. Look at this grief that you have. This is amazing. We don't get this back home." And then Smooth, of course, in the human body going through, like, "What are you talking about? This is the worst. This is horrible. I'm suffering." And so you're seeing this contrast immediately between the vibrational consciousness of seeing this as a big play and being stuck in this human character and thinking it's real and suffering through it. So that's really informed my whole journey, is how do you tell the story of, yes, this is real in terms of experientially, but it's not actually real. It's a big play. It's a big show. And how do you enjoy the show while you're playing the character? And that's where the magic really is.
So much there. And the thing is, there are people who just say, no, we're in a war. We're in a famine situation. We're in a situation where I have no job, or I don't have enough to eat. The bills are, pounding at my door. This is real. But we're experiencing it. And do you ever have the, I'm waiting for the answer to this, the idea, the sense that we are maybe part of a bigger construct, somebody else's bigger construct, somebody else's dream, somebody else's video game. Does that play into any of this?
I think it's ours. I think it's all ours. And I think there's nothing outside of it. It's all within it. And this is a really interesting paradoxical concept for us to wrestle with, and I think the reason that thought came into form, and this is just my own perspective, and I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things. In fact, I'm wrong about a whole lot more than I'm right about. But at least from my perspective, it's that we're all a fractal of the same idea. We're all a fractal of the same dream. We're all a fractal of the same experience. But because we're in this consciousness of I'm me and you're you, and this thing is happening outside of me, like these political leaders are doing this and they're doing it to me, and my ex broke my heart and they broke my heart, and there's this separation we see between everything. I'm having a hard time paying the bills, which are those things, and I'm this thing, that we tend to see that, and then we ascribe that feeling to the bigger picture to say, well, obviously it has to be somebody else's dream that I'm just a subject of. Because we can't step into our own power consciously. Like, what if this whole thing were just my own dream and your dream, but it was one dream? That's hard for us to wrap our head around. So we just say, well, it's somebody else's dream. And we're just like puppets on a string.
Yeah, that brings you back to the idea of the Octopus Movement and the mycelium, and that we're all together. And it's something that we do to bring it into life that isn't life for other people. We get into these think tanks and or just these conversations, and we're bouncing things off of one another, and everybody accepts them. And it could, if we had an attitude like yours, be okay even if we didn't accept them, which happens once in a while. But I feel like we bash against each other, and we bash against ourselves all of our lives, and we will, all of our barriers, all of our perceived barriers, all of our real barriers, we bash against them all of our lives. And the moment we get together and things are accepted, everything kind of flows, and we're all part of the same thing. And that's life in the Octopus Movement. It's beautiful. It solves problems because the problems are just part of the sea, the soup, the mycelium, and we just swim our way to them. This is, they're going to put me in a straitjacket too, but this is, very much like how we work here. And so it's just so interesting that you have had the same thing ahead of time before you knew you were here, the same kind of concept in your writing and in your life. And then here was the Octopus Movement. And I wonder if you've met any other people who are like that, or if you've gotten that sense of the Octopus Movement too.
Many, actually. And I want to give a shout out to my guy, Carrie Core, who's, I know, with us on the stream today. Carrie is the one who introduced me to the Octopus Movement and introduced me to Perry. But also, Carrie, I love you, brother. Love you, man. And I appreciate you. And you remember, Carrie and I, we met at some point last year, and we just had a chance to chat about all kinds of things. An amazing, amazing guy. And he told me all about this movement, and my ears just perked up like a dog, that just heard that dinner's coming, and I got to get all excited about it. So I couldn't wait to be a part of this.
That's amazing and really coincidental, because Carrie and I talked first, and then Carrie and I talked right when Carrie was first, being part of the movement, because he was like, I don't know, a week after me or something. And we have weekly chats because we're octopus twins. So but really there are thousands of people like this. And Carrie is here, and he said that he loved your book, Path to Perfectia. So that is, and for all of you who don't know, Perry and Carrie also have a podcast that you can catch here live, and that is all about film and that's a great nonlinear thing, and also a great informed thing, because Carrie is a film writer, and there is I love you too, Carrie. And Perry is a absolute film. What shall I call this? Both a maverick and a
Trailblazer.
trailblazer, zeitgeist, all sorts of things, and the two of them just have the greatest conversation. So, shout out for that. Another shout out is that you have something going called, let's see, The Onion. What is you are about to launch something, and it's called The Onion of Consciousness. So what is this all about?
Yeah, so the name of the site, and it's going to be launching next month on April 14th. So 4/14, and it's called The Daily Stuffing. And if people ask me what it is, and I basically tell them it is if you know the website, The Onion, the satire site, The Onion, it is essentially the onion of consciousness. So unlike The Onion and its counterpart on the other polarity, the Babylon Bee, and I love both. I think they're both hilarious. So this is not to take cheap shots at competitors. I love all the stuff. If you're going to be funny, I love you. But one thing that they've both done is they've both fallen into deep polarities, where one of them will take a lot of shots at, like, quote, the other side, and then the other will do the exact same thing, and they're lobbing barbs and missiles at each other, like that old video game on MS-DOS in the early 90s, like with the two gorillas, and you had the buildings, they were tossing the bananas. That's kind of what it is right now. And don't get me wrong, I love bananas. I'd love a banana smoothie right now. So if we can hook that up, that'd be awesome. Fundamentally, what the Daily Stuffing is all about is satire, but from a higher level of consciousness, where there's no cheap shots taken at one side. There's no narrative woven in that, like, one side or one people are bad, but these people are good. It's not about that. It's about finding the joyful, ridiculous irreverence in everything. It's about unifying satire as opposed to dividing satire. And we're going to be launching in a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I love that. We're seeing so much stress and strain, right? And yet, if you look at the stress and strain itself, it's hilarious. I mean, it's also it's awful, right? But I've had bleep in my life, right? I mean, you have too. We all have, and I would do those again, because now, as I stepped away, I have so much more perspective on it, and it's just funny. I mean, one thing for me, I got in a car accident, right? That was terrible, right? But my car flew up into a tree 4 feet, and there was a oil stain on the tree 4 feet up, and it leapt over a mailbox. That is ridiculous.
I hope the tree had a good lawyer.
The tree was fine. I was a little bashed up, but yeah. And it was a freak accident, because I was, going. My speedometer was stopped at 40 miles an hour and it's like, somebody threw me into a tree. So, and it is. Kristen Taylor says, reminds me of The Far Side, and yeah. It is just. Things are ridiculous. Things are absolutely ridiculous. And, maybe our subconscious writes this and says, okay, you need to learn this lesson. Let's just splat you into this tree and see if you learn it. If not, let's just throw you into something else. And it's hilarious. And if we can look at that, that's where we learn, because we pivot and we jump off. It's like a springboard. We can create things, which you have, which Carrie has, which I have. I write music and do art, but writing music is the biggest thing that I do, and it's something that we do. That all comes down to this humor, but I haven't really, thought of it exactly as that. It's that pivot point.
It really is. And I did swear I would never take part in a conversation again that used the word pivot after 2020, but here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are. This is the new normal in these unprecedented times. But you're absolutely right. Lydia, it's really interesting that you say that, because fundamentally these things just do keep coming to us. And and not to use the old cliche, and I do believe it, the whole it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, and I do believe that on a broader scale. But while it's happening to us, we feel it, and it's hard, and it's painful, and it's difficult, and there's no sugarcoating that. So I think one thing that I love about this movement is that it really leans into the idea of, or a few ideas, but they're all tied together. One is that two things can be true at once, which seems to be lost in the common discourse about pretty much everything these days. Also, the concept of yes and, which I think is huge. And I think if we can live according to yes and, it changes everything. Yes, because so one thing you find on the, I would call it the victimology part of the consciousness, is just stuck on the yes. Like, this bad thing happened, yes. It sucks, yes. It's painful, yes. It's hard, yes. But they get stuck there. And they get this loop in this narrative. This will be hard forever. It's awful. I'm the victim. This is terrible. Life will never be good again. Yeah. But then on the other side of it, you have like what I call it, kind of like the guru self-help hustle bro kind, which is only focuses on and it totally eliminates the yes. Well, this bad thing happened. Yeah, who cares? Who cares? Like, dust yourself off, get back up, hustle, grind, get it. You're good. You're good. You're not a victim. You're a creator. You're this or that. Like, yeah, but that bad thing. No, it didn't. Who cares? Didn't matter. Just grind. But okay, both are totally missing the mark in my book, because I don't think either is a healthy approach. But if you lean into the idea of yes and, yes, you have, yes, it happened. Yes, you feel it. Yes, you synthesize it, and you can overcome it. And there are brighter days ahead, and you can learn from it, and you can become better because of it.
Yeah. Wow. I love yes and when, because we also have, there's this is a statistic, but some statistics are actually there for a reason. A lot of it's because they were made up, but a lot of statistics are there for a reason. And this is one that says everybody is at least 10% right. And that is also another yes and, because you can talk to anybody, and instead of being, no, you're wrong, and say, well, yeah, that 10%, that's our bridge, that's our unity, that's our where we come together. And that's how you can resolve conflicts. You can either bounce off of that. It's funny that I look at that thing and I look at it this way. And if you actually talk to one another with connecting on that 10% and find what it is that how you interpret it differently, that's hilarious too. Because you can throw yourself, it's like putting on a costume. It's like putting on a wig and saying, okay, like if I had hair like that, I might actually think like you do. It's a metaphor for how we actually can resolve conflict.
It really is. And I'll tell you this, if you had hair like this, you wouldn't be thinking much at all. It doesn't do anything to help that cause. That's a promise. Your hair is much better than mine. I'd swap it out in a heartbeat with you, Lydia. The essence of the path to Perfectia is the concept of yes and. It's acknowledging that while we're in these human meat suits, we're going to have difficult experiences. We're going to suffer through accidents. We're going to suffer through grief. We're going to suffer through loss. We're going to suffer through difficulties, loneliness. All these different things are going to happen. And the sun will come up again. And there's a way through. And there are brighter days ahead. And we will ultimately become better for all the experiences. And it all weaves together. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do with the daily stuffing in a bit of a different way. It's just this recognition that, yeah, this world is nuts. It's out there. It's crazy. But it's this big, fun, like playhouse. And it's wild at times, and we can have fun with it, and we don't have to let the heaviness of it weigh us down, and we don't need to allow the craziness of the world to shove us into these angry polarities that we find ourselves in, where we dehumanize half of the other population because they don't agree with every single thing we don't agree with. The and part of that is, yes, it's wild, and we can still have fun with it.
Yeah, it's a totally. I do improvisation, and it's a improvisatory way of dealing with things too, because when you can see the different perspectives and the different ways that you might be able to launch this, or you just are able to go with the flow, it's so much more exciting and it's so much more enjoyable. And it's also, I mean, if you look at it the other way, that, you know, improvisation, I mean, you know, it's like being naked. I don't want to go out naked. I don't know what, don't tell me to make it up. I don't have any barriers, any walls, this is terrible. It sounds absolutely frightening. And everything that you're talking about sounds absolutely frightening to some people. It's like, no, they are wrong. And I'm not enough, and I can't handle this. But when you go out and talk about it and you just do it, there are those times when everybody at some point is in this, you know, I'm going to use another sort of cliche, but flow, because there's a reason that things are a cliche, because they actually have, it's a common experience. We have that common experience among us. Tell me about your background, that where you became the funny guy, or have you just always been? Were you born this way?
Oh, it's a trauma response that calls itself a personality. Let's not kid ourselves. It's and we're just being honest, you know, every comedian tries to find this, you know, fun backstory. Well, I knew I liked to crack jokes in third grade. Well, yeah, you crack jokes in third grade as a trauma response because maybe you weren't getting attention at home, or maybe you were bullied, or there's always some like actual real reason behind it. So that's the actual real reason, if we're just talking frankly.
Yeah.
You know, but you use it as a tool like anything else. And this is where, again, the yes, and like, yes, becoming a quote funny person is 100% a trauma response, and you scratch any comedian and you will find that underneath the ticket. However, the and comes in, but you were able to develop this as a response to that, and look at the cool things you can do with it. So lean into it and do it, and don't run from it.
Right. Wow. So that was just raw without being gnarly. You know, that is, we all have a trauma response. And some of them are just more entertaining than others. But if you look at them all, actually, what did you do out there in the audience? What did you do for a trauma response? And can you look at this and say, actually, that trauma response rocks? That kind of, that's really, if I were to use that in my company, or in my family, or in my art, what could I get from that? So that is something that those people who can rock this, and I think a lot of creatives do this, and there's a lot of creativity in the Octopus Movement. That launches us into something that's really amazing. You know, this is something that everybody can relate to, and if you have had no trauma in your life, that's awesome too. You can still enjoy the comedy and the art and all the things that make us human. And octopuses, or octopi, or octavists, or whatever it is.
I like that. Octavists.
Octavists.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, there was the child of one of the members came up with this, and Perry loved it and went with it. So octavists, we kind of bashed it about and said, yeah, it's good. I thought it sounded like a musical term, but you know, it's great. So how are we gonna get to be part of the daily stuffing? How are we do we just go there? Is it on launch day? And
yeah, so it'll be live in a couple of weeks, thedailystuffing.com. If you want to just kind of keep abreast of the whole thing, just follow me on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Reach out to me. I'm going to have a ton of information about it. I'll be putting it out in the week prior to it. So happy to put you up. We're going to have a free mailing list. So every morning you're going to get a free shot of daily, joyful, ridiculous irreverence sent right into your inbox, because fundamentally it beats doom scrolling first thing in the morning. And if you start your day with a laugh, or at least with a bit of a think, better than starting your day with anxiety. Get your vibration up a little bit. It will set you on a whole different path for your day.
Absolutely. And, you know, which one is more real? I think that our joy and our response to this and our connection through the laughter is going to be just the right thing. So thank you, Geoff. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for being part of the Octopus Movement, and thank you for being a founding member and listening.
Thank you, Lydia. Appreciate you, and thank Perry and thank Carrie and thank all of you in the comments. I love you guys.